Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the spring Norton Town meeting to order. My name is Walter Eichel. I am the Norton Town moderator. To my right is Lucia Longhorst, the town clerk. And I'd first like to start by inviting everyone to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for making the effort and taking the time to come out for our meeting. But before we start the meeting, I'd like to go over some rules. If you are a registered voter, you need to be seated on the field this side of the long jump track. So I will recognize voters to the left of the last ribbon, but if you're past the long jump track, that is where non-voters must sit. And if you are voting, please do not sit in that area. There are seats on this side of the field for anybody looking for a little more space, so feel free to move there. However, during the meeting, and particularly while voting, I ask you all to please stay in your sections, in your designated sections. Do not move between sections while voting is taking place on any question. If you wish to address the meeting, you may do so after being recognized by the moderator. When you wish to speak, you may stand up and I will recognize you, and you may go to one of the microphones distributed throughout the field. When you speak, please start by stating your name and address so the clerk can record that information for the minutes. Please try and keep your remarks brief, to the point, and make sure they are relevant to the article under discussion only. All speakers will be treated with respect and courtesy by the moderator and other attendees of the meeting. No speaker will be allowed to use the meeting for personal attacks on any individual. All remarks will be directed to the moderator, and while I will allow questions to be asked of individuals, I will not allow cross-examination of speakers. In recognizing people to speak, I will try to call upon those who have not spoken on the topic already before those who have already spoken. I will entertain motions to move the questions, but I will reserve my right as moderator to deny any motion to move the question if I think there is still discussion to be had. If a standing vote is required, you will be instructed to stand at your seats until the vote is counted. If a ballot vote is required, instructions will be presented at that point. If you wish to make an amendment to any motion, you must do so in writing and present it to the moderator and the clerk. Please prepare your written amendments and bring them up here. If you want to move an article that has not been recommended by the Finance Committee, you must also present that motion to the clerk in writing. No motion to reconsider any article, will be accepted by the moderator until at least 3 articles following that article have been acted on by the meeting. This will not apply if the article is one of the last 3 of the warrant. Be aware that any article you act on today can be reconsidered. So, the Bill Gouveia rule of reconsideration means that if you came here for, let's say, Article 5, and that article passes, and you decide to leave the meeting, but 3 articles later, someone moves to reconsider the article. So it is possible that discussion and possible revoting will happen and could possibly change the result of that vote. So be aware of that as that results of the voting are not permanent until the end of the meeting. There will be a process for non-voters to speak on certain articles, and it is up to the meeting to decide, but I'd recommend that outside speakers I remind you that outside speakers often have important, relevant facts that you may need to decide on when you're considering articles. And I do have a list. Do I have a motion to allow outside speakers? Those speakers being Attorney Henry Souza, Jeff O'Neill of Condine Capital Partners, Tom Cox from Greystone, and Craig McGowan from Mass DOT. Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All those in favor of allowing that list of outside speakers to address the meeting, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? The motion passes by majority as determined by the moderator. So at this point, I would like to officially open the spring Norton Town Meeting. But before we get to the warrant, we are at the time when we will actually begin the special town meeting. So at this time, I officially open the spring town meeting. The spring special town meeting. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, we have a couple of announcements. For the people standing in the back of the field, we do have chairs for you, and we invite you to sit on the field. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, please do at this point. All right, so I'm going to revisit that. I now officially open the spring Norton Town Meeting. And
can we add a person to the non-resident?
Okay, sure, I'll do that right next. And before we address the special town meeting, I will, at this point, am going to recess the annual spring town meeting until the completion of the special town meeting, which we will address next. Okay, all right. Let's see, I have an addition to the outside speakers. Michael Viveros, did I pronounce that right? Yes. So I would like to vote on allowing another outside speaker, Mr. Michael Viveros, to address the town meeting. All in favor of allowing that outside speaker, please indicate by raising your hand. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion carries by majority rule as determined by the moderator. Let's see. Okay, a couple other things. I would like to thank the health agent, Chris Zahner, for all his work in preparing a safe meeting environment for our meeting today. And one other piece of business I should have done before. Another responsibility of the town moderator is appointing a deputy moderator. So at this time, I would like to nominate Mr. Bill Gouveia as deputy moderator, and he will to serve a term from this meeting until the next spring meeting. So all those in favor of nominating or accepting the nomination of Mr. Gouveia as deputy moderator, please indicate by raising your hand. Not generally, but would you like to make a comment?
Ralph Stefanelli, 12 James Street. Does that give the acting moderator the choice of picking someone for the Finance Committee in your absence?
It does not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanelli. So I'm going to begin that vote again. All in favor of accepting the nomination of Mr. Gouveia as deputy moderator, please indicate by raising your hand. All those opposed? The nomination passes by majority vote as determined by the moderator. All right, before we move to the warrant, I would like to remind everyone, if you do choose to leave the meeting while the meeting is going on, I ask you to move to the rear of the field and exit through the back corner there. That would be best for running the meeting. So if you do choose to leave mid-meeting, please exit through the back of the field. We will now move to the warrant. Madam Clerk, has there been a return on the warrant?
Madam Clerk is behind the 8 ball here. Mr. Moderator, I have served this warrant by posting attested copies at Chartley Post Office, Norton Post Office, Norton Municipal Center, Norton Public Library, and 3 other public places within the limits of said town.
Speak up.
14 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Michael J. Mayer, Constable in Norton, dated April 22nd, 2021.
Risha, move the microphone closer to you.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, one more time, sorry.
Sorry. Mr. Moderator,
Madam Clerk.
Norton, Massachusetts. I have served this warrant by posting attested copies at Chartley Post Office, Norton Post Office, Norton Municipal Center, Norton Public Library, and 3 other public places within the limits of said town, 14 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Attest, Michael J. Mayer, Constable, Norton, dated April 22nd, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now move to the warrant for the special town meeting. Article 1.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to borrow the sum of $23,290,000 to be expended under the direction of the Select Board and the Permanent Building Committee for the purpose of planning, design, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a town hall located at 70 and 78 East Main Street, the sum of $11,110,000 to be expended under the direction of the Select Board and the Permanent Building Committee for the purpose of planning, design, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a senior and community support center to be located at 116 through 120 Mansfield Ave, and the sum of $6,362,000 to be expended under the direction of the School Committee and Permanent Building Committee for the purpose of planning, design, construction, furnishing, and equipping of the Norton Public Schools Community Athletic Complex to be located on the grounds of the Norton High School, 66 West Main Street, and the Henry A. Yell Elementary School, 64 West Main Street, for the total sum of $40,762,000, and collectively referred to as the project, which project shall include costs for the land purchases, professional services such as design, contract administration, professional and owner's project management, as well as site preparation and demolition, and all other incidental related costs, and to meet this appropriation to transfer the sum of $1,073,850 from the amount appropriated under Article 12 of the October 23, 2017 town meeting, and further to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, to borrow the remaining balance and the total sum appropriated hereunder and issue bonds and notes, therefore pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7 or 8, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and in accordance with General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, authorize any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, lest any such premium applied to the payment of the costs and issuance of such bonds or notes to be applied to the payment of costs approved hereunder, thereby reducing by a like amount the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs, and further, that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by the amount of any gifts or grants received for such purposes prior to the issuance of the bonds or notes authorized hereunder, and further, to authorize the Select Board to take such actions and execute such documents and agreements as are necessary to effectuate the purpose of this article, including contracts with terms in excess of 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand we have some speakers on this topic. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon, neighbors. My name is Jack Conway, and I am the current chair of your Select Board. I have the privilege of speaking to you today about the Norton for Everyone debt exclusion. While I shall do my best to keep these remarks as brief as possible, those of you who have seen my posts on social media are likely aware that brevity and I are not particularly close friends. That said, I shall do my best to remain focused and on point. So why are many of us here today? We're here to discuss and vote on a debt exclusion that would provide our town with three things it sorely needs: a new town hall, a new senior and community support center, and new athletic fields. The cost of these projects is not insignificant. Approving them today would authorize the town to borrow up to $40.7 million, repaid over a 30-year period at a cost of $300 to the typical homeowner per year. The road to get here was a long one with many twists and turns. Formal discussions on a new town hall and senior center date back at least 3 years, the athletic fields even longer. These projects have been under the stewardship of the Permanent Building Committee, residents of our town who selflessly volunteered their time to find the best options to address these critical deficiencies. I would like to acknowledge these individuals for their unwavering commitment to this process and commend them on what they've put forward for consideration. Kevin O'Neill, Bob Briscoe, Brian Bichette, Mark Gershom, Bob Medeiros, Jim Slattery, and Dinah O'Brien. Thank you all for what you've done on behalf of the community. You'll be hearing from Ms. O'Brien and Dr. Bayetta shortly on the specifics of the two buildings and field proposal, but I'd like to quickly address some of the whataboutisms we've heard over the last few months during our march to this day. What about such and such a location? After the Reed and Barton property was dropped from consideration in 2019, the PBC commissioned a property survey to find any potential plots of land in town that would be suitable for one or both of these buildings. This included town-owned parcels as well as privately held sites. At least 17 locations were identified and considered, and after assessing the viability of each more critically regarding usable size, wetlands impact, and accessibility, these were narrowed down to 5. From there, the final locations were proposed and agreed to. If a site did not make it to this list, it is almost certainly because the parcel was too small, too wet, or too far into an otherwise residential area. What about leasing, such as the Roach Brothers site? This was also considered, but ultimately not recommended for a variety of reasons. Prime among them, the cost is similar to what has been proposed today. It removes viable commercial property from the tax roll, and the impact to our operating budget of between $400,000 and $600,000 per year. Without an operational override, this $400,000 to $600,000 would need to come out of our operating budget, diverting much needed funds from our other services such as fire, police, and schools. This route would likely have required a debt exclusion to fund the physical remodeling of the location and an operational override to cover the lease costs. Knowing Norton as we do, this did not seem to be a path worth going down. Designing for COVID. One thing is for sure, COVID-19 has drastically impacted all of our lives. It has also affected the way we think about and utilize physical space within our buildings. While it is true that the concept design for these buildings reflect pre-COVID thinking, it's important to understand that it is just that, a concept design that reflects the needs of these functions as they were understood at the time this process started. There is still a robust design phase to come, long before a shovel is put into the ground, where our learnings about COVID, remote work, and accessibility can be applied to these buildings. Another COVID-related concern is the economic one. Coming out of one of the greatest economic shocks in our lifetimes, is this truly the right time to ask you to support such an investment? I and many others on this stage and in the audience would argue that there is never a good time to make this ask. And while this particular time may seem more challenging than most, we need to think about where we will be in 2 to 3 years' time, when the borrowing is complete and we start repaying the bond. I truly believe that we will be in a better condition at that point, and should we wait until we are there before deciding to make this investment, the cost will have increased even further, along with needing to make continued Band-Aid investments into Town Hall, Senior Center, and the athletic fields to keep limping along. Each year these projects get delayed exposes us to additional construction escalation costs to the tune of roughly 5% per year. If we were to wait for 2 years to bring these back up, the cost would increase by $4 million alone based on that. The time to lock this in is now. Now, I'm sure you may have other questions, which myself and the other presenters today will be glad to answer. I have one final point. I expect that shortly after we finish speaking, a member of the audience today will be making amendments to change the scope of the article in question to reduce or remove one or more of these projects from consideration. While doing so seems to be within the ability of open town meeting, I urge these individuals, as well as you out there, anybody who will be asked to vote on such an amendment, to reconsider this course of action. This debt exclusion was presented to voters in April as a community investment, and it passed as such. To modify it now flies in the face of the common sense and goodwill of this town's voters, and I implore you in the strongest possible terms to allow this article to be voted on as it is written and as it was presented to voters at our April election. I realize that the concept of community can be a bit of a lightning rod. For me, and I hope many others out there today, it's a point of pride. Our community is what makes this town strong, what makes it great. The way we have come together to support one another in our times of need. Think back over the last 15 months to all the ways the members of our community found ways to support those who are suffering in ways big and small. Through food donations, monetary donations, personal assistance like going to the grocery store, supporting GoFundMe campaigns, and setting up meal trains. That, to me, is what community is. It's the ties that bind us together into more than we are as individuals. These projects represent an improvement across intergenerational lines, providing opportunities for sustained financial stability and helping to define why Norton is such a great place to live, raise our children, and retire. So please consider choosing today to make an investment into our community that will continue to support our residents, whoever they may be. Make today the day we say Norton is for everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dinah O'Brien. I'm chair of the Norton Permanent Building Committee, and I'd like to thank you all for coming out today. I'm here to provide some background and some basic information on the projects. As has been referenced, these projects began back in 2017, hit several snags, but have continued on to this day. During that course of action, the Permanent Building Committee decided to continue with the feasibility study concepts for the building as previously developed, both in the terms of cutting cost and that surveys concerning the town hall usage and the senior community center had already been conducted. The location criteria that the building committee used when determining sites was that a site had to hold one or both buildings, begin to be within a 3-mile radius of town center, be either municipally owned, public land, private sale, or other, not wet, as we all know how wet our community is. 17 projects were identified and vetted by the Permanent Building Committee in the winter of 2020. 5 sites were selected as possible locations and presented to the Select Board at that time. During the summer of 2020, 2 public Zoom presentations on the site were presented to collect community feedback, and the 2 sites that were identified by community members as favored are the sites that you see before you today. The Select Board was in agreement with the 2 sites, the Mansfield Avenue location for the Council on Aging Community Center, and the Route 123 Town Hall site for a Town Hall Municipal Complex. My committee's work schedule began in November 2020 to develop the site and the building concepts, including modifications to the Town Hall. In January 2021, finalized conceptual designs and development costs were received. And in February 2021, the Select Board presentations, conceptual design finalizations, 2 public hearings in March of this year, and our April town election. The COA Community Support Center is proposed for $11,110,000. The current site, as we all know, is on Route 123 West in an 1880 repurposed single-room school firehouse conversion. It is 1,850 square feet with failing infrastructure, failing heating, lack of programming space. The new location is on Mansfield Avenue, across from Freight's, for those of us who remember back that far. It is proposed to be 11,850 square foot, single story. It will include our local food pantry with a separate entry, public meeting spaces, and a passive recreation area. The town hall proposal is $23,290,000. Our current town hall is in a repurposed gym from the Winds and the Pines Finishing School. It was remodeled around 1977 and has 14,800 square feet. It is cinder block construction, showing severe structural fatigue, cracks open to the weather, roof leaks are extensive, lack of handicapped access for both the public and employees, electrical deficiency, emergency egress concerns, lack of meeting space for staff and public meetings, extensive mold issues, lack of parking. It cannot be expanded and has the inability to continue to function for a 21st century work environment. The new town hall is proposed for 24,450 square feet. It is a two-story, energy-efficient facade. It has both public and department meeting spaces. It is accessible, has adequate vault storage for the treasurer and the town clerk, accessible restrooms, working elevators, and adequate parking. It is to be noted that during its due diligence, the building committee received input from two cost estimators, PM&C and CHA. CHA estimated the town hall cost at $699.19 per square foot. PB&C estimated the town hall at $693.12, a $6 difference. We feel we have a good number. CHA estimates the Council on Aging cost at $679.56 per square foot. PB&C estimates $627.01, a $50 difference. Again, we feel we have a solid number. There have been questions about the cost of the town hall, and I feel I must put out that the construction cost includes constructing the new building, removing the current gym portion or the gray stucco cinder block part of the building as it exists today, and reconstruction of an outside wall. This will allow the fire department to extend into the brick portion of the existing building. All site work for the proposed municipal center, including but not limited to reworking the existing multiple curb cuts for better traffic flow, and entrance and exiting Route 123, sewer for the site, electrical for the site, IT communications between buildings is included in the town hall portion of this project. So the number is not entirely for town hall construction, as is the COA number. Our anticipated timeline moving forward is summer, winter, fall, and spring of 2021, 2022. During that time, we will take the bid process for design services out. Once design services are awarded, We will be looking at the proposed buildings again to tighten up the needed space, make the needed adjustments that we might have to, and to rework this for a post-COVID environment. During that time, bid documents will be developed and construction drawings made. We will bid the project, interview and hire an owner's project manager whose sole responsibility is to represent the community of Norton during this construction project, open the bid documents from the general contractors, including subs, and award the bid. We anticipate construction to begin in late 2022, 2023 at the earliest. This is the building side of it. I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Byetta for the school portion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Joe Byetta, Superintendent of Norton Public Schools. On behalf of the Norton School Committee and the support of the Permanent Building Committee, the Finance Committee, the Capital Committee, and the Select Board, I want to provide you with an overview of the athletic complex as one project within the Norton for Everyone vote that was approved in the past election. The athletic complex decision started with a review of our athletic fields and tennis courts approximately 4 years ago. The school committee then took the outcomes of that review and put together an athletic fields and complex committee. The issues were the following four: a concern for safety and for student athletes and citizens using the current facilities, a growing athletic program and community need without community fields, a fiscally responsible plan that enhances the facilities and provides for opportunities, and lastly, the ability to provide for equitable facilities for all sports and activities. That committee requested via the Capital Committee at the annual town meeting 3 years ago, $20,000, which was supported unanimously. The outcome allowed for us to hire Gale Associates as the firm to review our fields. Gale has been a leading firm in Massachusetts with many of the local school districts throughout the Commonwealth on these types of projects. 10 different options, options A, B, C, D, E, F1, F2, G, H1, and H2 were provided. The cost range from the high of just under $11 million to the low of $5.7 million. The final project recommended was at $6.3 million. The project consists of a new 8-lane track, lighting and turf field here at Adams, new tennis courts behind the Yale School, and a multi-purpose field behind to the side of the Yale School for multiple sports. That will also include lighting. Overall, the project will also include a connection of the Yale and the high school's sewerage onto 123. That is the reason why the project went from 5.7 to 6.3. It's the sewer connections for the two schools as part of the project. This project is fiscally sound as we have gone through the beginning of an almost $11 million project down to this 6.3. It cuts on the yearly operating costs, provides for the future of Norton and its citizens, provides for safe playing fields for all of its citizens, including its tennis courts, and allows for the potential to bring in much needed revenue by renting facilities out to organizations outside of the town that are looking for these types of facilities. This was a process for all of us, and I want to thank the Permanent Building Committee for allowing us to be part of this one project. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers. Is there any discussion on Article 1? If you'd like to speak, please come to a microphone. And as always, state your name and address for the record.
Peter J. Wiggins, 157 Mansfield Avenue, and I'm all for all three projects because our town hall is unsuitable, the senior center is a death trap, and the athletic fields are a death trap, so everyone to vote for all three because this is the future of our town and we want to continue to live life in this good old town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wiggins. Any further discussion on Article 1?
Walter, right in front of you.
Yep. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, there was somebody here before you. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bill Marr, 82 Pine Street. I know a lot of us already have our mind made up, but for those of us who haven't, excuse me, I'm a little bit of a numbers guy. The White House recently announced that there are 10 million families across the country who are behind in their mortgage payments. 1 in 5 renters are delinquent upon their rent, and there has been explosive growth in the number of people on food stamps or SNAP benefits. So we've heard that taxes are not going to increase for 2 or 3 more years. And we heard today that economic conditions probably will be better. Do we remember 15 days to stop the spread or wear our masks for 100 days? We don't know what the economic situation is going to be thanks to COVID. Finally, we've got a group in town who have identified themselves as Norton for everyone. So does everyone include people who are struggling to pay for their housing, are struggling to put food on their table? Or is everyone the privileged who have been less impacted? The challenges that these people face should not have to happen to us for them to matter for us. And I ask you to consider those people as well when you cast your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marr. Mr. Stefanelli.
Well said. Ralph Stefanelli, 12 James Street. I have 2 points of information. The stacking of 3 articles that are worth $57 million over a 20-plus year period is setting a precedent. When this was brought up in 2017 by me with an amendment to separate the COA Community Center and the Town Hall, it was separated at that point by an approved vote of the amendment and an approved vote of the article. In 2020, 3 years later, the school committee, through many years of working on a project, all the way up to ABCD through XYZ, committed itself to jump on and stack these projects into one. I believe, in my opinion, they should have been handled as presented in 2017, and the school committee should have been a standalone project. So my point of information is this what's going to happen in the future with major projects? Is now this operation going to be grandfathered? So when something is needed, and we do need a lot of things, is this the methodology that you, select board other committees is going to use. And I also have one more point, very short, but I'd like an answer to my first request.
Then I'll get to you, Mr. Gouveia.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stefanelli, what was your first request?
Thank you for listening. It went like this. In 2017,
Oh, okay.
and then in 2020, a new method in stacking was used. Will that same way of doing business be grandfathered for future people like the gentleman who just spoke, and he'll be forced to possibly leave the town of Norton?
Thank you very much for repeating that. I would like to point out that this is not a new method. According to the Town of Norton bylaw, all construction or renovation projects over the amount of $2,500 with a life expectancy of longer than 5 years come under the purview of the Permanent Norton Building Committee. The Building Committee began working with the school department back in 2019 with their project. The committee is a joint appointment with both the Select Board and the School Committee. We held many public meetings through 2019, 20, and 21, including the school projects in the Building Committee's process. I know you were in attendance for many of those. So this is not an attempt to stack together. It is an attempt to function under the town bylaw as set out for the town of Norton.
Thank you. One more point, very quickly. The school committee indicated that they will be collecting fees to rent out what we paid for the school complex. What kind of an account will those fees presented to the school be used? Will it be a revolving account, or will it go into the general fund to be used where it's necessary for all departments in the present way we do business here in Norton?
Denise Ellis, 5 Brahman Drive, Chairman of the School Committee. Ralph, I'll answer your second question. That would, by law.
Do you really need that mask? Because it's very difficult to hear you.
I like people to see the Van Halen.
Oh, okay, Mr. Biden.
To answer your second question first, it would go into a revolving account, which I believe is the law. And to answer your first question, I can't speak for everybody, but I will speak for the school committee when I say yes, moving forward, we would like to stand as a unified community when we do things and not as separate. So that's our preference. Certainly there will be projects that will come up individually, and they should pass individually, but there's no reason why we cannot stand together, united as one community for one time in our lives.
Thank you for the clarification, and I appreciate what you said, and let's see what happens with the vote. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanelli. Mr. Gouveia.
Bill Gouveia, 111 Maple Street. This has been something that has gone on for a long time. In 45 years as a town official, never once have I heard anybody get together and say, hey, you know, this is a pretty good time. Maybe we should spend some extra money on the things we need to spend on. It's always, this is not the time. Well, Norton has never, ever, in its 300-year history, built a town hall with taxpayer money. The current one was slapped together on the cheap with a federal grant in the 70s to remodel a private school gymnasium. It replaced a building which still exists today next to the post office, which was donated by the Newcomb family, I believe in the late 1800s. Our senior center is in a building that's an 1880s schoolhouse. Our fields are deemed unsafe and unwilling to play on by other schools because they're in such sad shape. Is this what Norton is? Is this what the town that I have grown up in is? That we can't take care of the basic needs, that in 300 years we can't give a town hall for our workers to be safe and to represent our town, and a place where you can actually bring people to have meetings? Is this what we are, where we crowd our seniors into a place that's unsuitable? Is this what we are, that we do this for our kids? I'm sick and tired of it's not the time. Back in the 70s, we had to do the town hall on that grant because voters would not build a town hall at the time because it was not the time. We've talked about senior centers before, and every time it's brought up, it's not the right time. Well, I say it is the right time now. And I ask the people here to please be the people that for the first time in 310 years built a town hall that was suitable to represent the town of Norton. Be the people that said, yes, it's time to respect our senior citizens and give them a decent building. Be the people that said, yes, it is the time to finally do something with our fields and make it a complex that is at least getting to be on par with everybody else around us. We are not a poor, stumbling town. We should not be an embarrassment. We are better than that. We are Norton. I'm 65 years old, and I'd love to kick this problem down the can, kick the can down the road to the next generation. But I won't do it because I have pride in my community, because this is my town. This is where I live. This is where I've grown up. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to exhibit that pride and to stand up and finally say, it is time.
Thank you, Mr. Gavea. Yes, sir.
Hello, Garth Gergerich from 401 Reservoir Street. Boy, now I get to follow Gavea. I never thought I'd be a centrist in anything, but I guess that's local politics. I fully support all three projects. I would vote for all of them. I do think that each one should stand on its own merits, and I understand it's in the bylaws. I think we should potentially look into changing those bylaws so that each project can be approved on its own. I think that Norton would support all three of them, but that way there'd be no question whether the fields passed by 55-45 and the senior center by much more. I think that would be good community buy-in. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Janet O'Keefe, 58 Cobb Street. I just want to tell you, I've been here for 35 years and I love this place. I've never been happier. My family's here. We made a nice house, a life. But things do change, and COVID did screw up a lot of stuff. I have family members from 14 years old, which would benefit from the school situation. Myself as a senior, my 94-year-old mom is with me. We benefit from the senior center also. And the town hall, you people who work at the town hall, God love yous. I hope we don't have to pay for medical stuff for you guys, because I think that building sucks. And now I have to go into my other stuff. I'm not eligible for food stamps because I make $239 more than I should. That's okay. I use the Norton Food Bank every second week, and I thank all of you for anything that you send to the Norton Food Bank. Everybody that I know that uses it needs it, and if you put anything in a box, thank you for feeding my family. I have to tell you, I'm on a fixed income, so are a lot of other people. I believe in what you did. You put in your heart and soul. You put together a whole big thing. I'm not happy that it's all together, but I gotta tell you, I gotta vote no, because at the end of the month, I have about $120. If you take 40 more out in 3 years, if this goes through, I don't know where I'm gonna be. And then, are you gonna allow me to go up to 120 West Main when I sell my house? I'm so afraid of this. And I want it, and I don't want it. And I thank you all, but I gotta vote no.
Thank you. I see somebody standing up there. Are you waiting to speak in the blue jacket? No? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Rob Kennedy, 5 Kayak Trail. I must say I consider myself a libertarian, and I generally are against any tax increases. However, in this particular case, I'm going to vote today yes for this tax increase. I do understand there are been good points that have been brought up by some people who are going to vote no. But the fact is that the time for debate for this particular bill was in April and in March, before the entire town voted. Now, are we going to really take away the right of what the town people have voted for already in April with a smaller crowd who could change that vote? It's akin to if the town charter folks who lost, and many were very disappointed. I know Mr. Conway had a very gracious losing comment on his Facebook page. However, if he decided that at town meeting they could bring it back up and say, well, maybe we can pass it here with a smaller crowd, I think many people rightfully would be thinking that was quite unfair and going against their rights. So today, I'm going to vote yes, and I hope even some of you who have voted against this in April will see that to do it today would be turning against the entire town who voted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 1? Thank you. I'm sorry, yes.
My name is Gail French, and I wrote an article in the Chronicle, and I guess a lot of people paid attention, because I want to say thank you to the committee, the Planning Board Committee, who made the tour possible visually for the senior center, the town hall, and for the school fields. I am very grateful that you did that, because I did not realize how bad the town hall was. Seeing all those wires and people in cramped quarters, and it was just appalling. And it's an accident waiting to happen. And with the senior center, I've been a member for a long time. And I have to tell you, it's the best place in the world to be. Now, if you have someone in your family who's a senior, do you want them to stay home and watch TV all day because they're lonesome? You're busy, you can't go and visit them as often as you want, and they don't know what to do with themselves. Wouldn't you like them to come to a nice senior center so that they can be active and make new friends and have a great time together? And they'll be active for a long time. Beth Rossi is the best. She's done a great job, and I think we ought to give her a hand, because she's the best. She cares so much about us. And I have to tell you, my own experience was, I used to live in Norton Glen, and I felt very isolated there. And I want you to know that since I became a part of the senior center, it was the best thing I ever did for myself. And I think anybody who is lonesome, who's a senior, who wants to meet people, doesn't want to stay and stare at a TV all day, they don't know what to do with themselves, they're lonely, they're depressed, come to the senior center. It's the best place in the world you can be. And I have to tell you, I am very grateful that you showed the film about the senior center, the town hall, and the fields. I didn't realize it was as bad as it was. But I have to tell you, I'm grateful. And I want to say thank you to you for doing that. I think they deserve a hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney, did you want to speak? No? Okay. Yes, sir. Over there in the hat.
Hi, how you doing? My
With
name's
the mask
Torrey
on, yeah.
My name's Torrey Cooper, 6 Boxbury Road. My question is, the money that we're going for today, is this like an all or nothing? So this is the $40 million and not to exceed more than 40-point-something million dollars. And in the future, if one of these projects seems to run over, because sometimes that happens, how do we come up with that money? Does one of the other projects suffer in the meantime while the others get taken care of? Just a curiosity.
Good question. Dana, yes?
The amount of money allocated to each project, within those projects, they will stay within that amount of money. Each project has a 4.5% escalator associated with it to account for inflation and a 10% contingency. But they will stay within those individual amounts.
So basically, each one is on their own with those amounts?
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay,
they'll stay within them.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Jonathan O'Reilly, 16 Barrow Street. I'd like to move the question.
At this point, I do not see anyone else waiting in line to speak. Is that, oh, we do? You want to speak? Oh, wait, motion to move the question. All right, well, I have a motion on the floor to move the question. Let me just check on something.
I heard it.
You can wait. All right, the motion to move the question requires a 2/3 vote. Please raise your purple voting tickets when I call on you.
Or blue. Or blue.
Or what?
Or blue. Purple or blue.
Blue? Okay.
Both. Both.
Both?
Yeah, purple, there's purple and blue. Yeah.
Okay, there's two of them, purple and blue apparently. Okay. All those in favor of moving the question, please signify by raising your hand.
Is that purple or pink?
All those opposed?
Oh, I'm colorblind.
Wow. The motion to move the question passes by majority vote as determined by the moderator. We will now move to the article under consideration, Article 1. This article requires a 2/3 vote for passage. Yes? For the motion, for the moving?
Moving the question was unanimous?
Yes.
It exceeds the 2/3 threshold.
It exceeds the two-thirds, yeah. So should I say something different? I think you said it was passed by majority. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yes. Okay. The motion to move the question passed by, exceeded the two-thirds for a unanimous vote. Thank you, Town Council. We will now move to voting on the main article, Article 1, requiring a two-thirds vote. All those in favor of Article 1, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? I'd like to do that one more time if we could, please. All those in favor of Article 1, please signify by raising your hand. And raise your card, yes, thank you. All those opposed? Article 1 passes by two-thirds majority as determined by the moderator. Article 2. Yes. Don't forget, articles can be reconsidered after 3 more articles. Article 2. Article 2. Article 2 fails for lack of a motion. Article 3. Article 3. Article 3 fails for lack of a motion. Article 4.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to approve Article 4 as printed in the May 8th, 2021 special town meeting warrant, thereby approving, confirming, and authorizing pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, Section 59, and Mass General Law, Chapter 23A, Section 3E and 3F, all of the actions set forth therein.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on Article 4? Mr. Town Manager.
Article 4 is to approve a tax increment financing program, and this is for the location of a Home Depot distribution facility in the Blue Star Park. And we're excited to have a company such as Home Depot come to Norton. They've shown a great commitment to the communities that they've participated in previously, and I know the Veterans Agent is excited because of the involvement of Home Depot with veterans in the communities where they're located. This will be a 10-year TIF, and it'll start at 80% the first year, 75% the year after that, 65%, 55%, then dropping to 45% for 3 years, 35% for 2, and 25% for 1. So during that time, the town will see that the taxes will take in $943,027 in taxes, and the company will save $784,000. The property is vacant right now, so the development of that project will bring more taxes to the town, even with the tax increment financing program. And also, I know that the building department is looking at a permit fee of somewhere between $160,000 to $200,000 for that project. So we're excited to have Home Depot in Norton, and there are good jobs available. These will be new jobs, and hopefully someone that you know can take advantage of that. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 4? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. Oh, we didn't have a quorum for this one. written on the point? For the TIF?
The TIF is just majority.
Thank you. For Article 4, we need a majority vote. All those in favor of Article 4, please signify by raising your card. All those opposed? Article 4 passes by majority vote as determined by the moderator.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to reconsider Article 1.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to reconsider Article 1. Reconsidering an article opens the opportunity to re-vote or rediscuss and re-vote on the article. So we will vote on the motion to reconsider the question. If you vote in the affirmative, discussion and possible voting will reopen on Article 1. If you vote negative, the article will stay as is and we will move on. Reconsideration requires a majority vote. All those in favor of reconsidering Article 1? Two-thirds, I'm sorry, thank you. All those in favor of reconsidering Article 1, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? The motion to reconsider fails. Thank you. Article 5. Article 5. Article 5 fails for lack of a motion. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to grant and convey any or all of its right, title, and interest in a parcel of land located at East Main Street, identified on Assessor's Map 11 as Parcel 78, containing 9,341 square feet, more or less, on such terms and conditions as the Select Board deems appropriate, and to enter into such agreements and execute such instruments as may be necessary or convenient to effectuate the foregoing transaction.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager.
This is a small parcel of land that exists directly across from Leonard Street where the new traffic signal has gone in, and right next to Dunkin' Donuts. It's currently listed as owned by the town of Norton. To be honest with you, no one knows how that came about. There are title issues, obviously, with the property, and this would authorize the Select Board to dispose of the property by sale or whatever means they deem possible. This will lead into the industrial land, well, we hope to soon be industrial land, will be rezoned. It's owned by the state, and they're going to auction that off, and this would allow a roadway to go in where those new traffic lights are.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion on Article 6? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. This vote requires a two-thirds majority. All those in favor of Article 6, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 6 passes by two-thirds majority as determined by the moderator. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to transfer the amount of $3,000 from free cash for the purpose of collecting and disposing of discarded items abandoned along the roadways and throughout the town that require special handling, including all other incidental and related costs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 7? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor of Article 7, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 7 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 8. Article 8. Article 8 fails for lack of a motion. Article 9.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to transfer the amount of $275,975 from free cash to pay all outstanding separation expenses associated with various employees from the town of Norton, and to authorize the town accountant, in consultation with the town manager, to allocate amounts to appropriate departments.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 9? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. This vote requires a majority. All in favor of Article 9, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 9 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 10.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to implement the first year of the collective bargaining agreements between the town of Norton and the Norton Police Association and the Norton Police Superiors Officer Association for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023, and confirm the appropriation made under Article 8 of the June 27, 2020 annual town meeting, which amounts are sufficient to fund all of the cost items for the first year of said contracts in the combined amount of $27,200.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 10? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 10, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 10 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Okay, should we interrupt the warrant for that?
A point of information.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
For a
All right,
point of
raise-
information.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
All right. You want to do that now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we have a point of information I'd like to present.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Denise Ellis. I'm Director of Assessing. I just wanted to make a point that there are a lot of programs out there for the seniors and veterans. We have what's called the deferrals, the senior exemptions, we have veterans exemptions, we have the senior work-off program, and the veterans work-off program. A lot of these programs are income-based so that you may be eligible for them. They're done right now for this year, but we'll be starting again in the fall. So if anybody is interested, seeing if you are eligible for those programs, please contact our office. We'd love to help you out and get you in those programs if you are eligible. So again, if you have any questions, please call us. We have many opportunities out there for anybody who may need help paying their taxes. And that's it. So just let us know, and we'd be glad to help. Is that good? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that information. Article 11.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to amend the vote taken under Article 8 of the June 27, 2020 annual town meeting by increasing appropriations for certain line items, and to do so by transferring the additional amount of $90,046 from free cash as follows: to account 308560, Bristol County Agricultural School, $2,417, just for an assessment. Account 423, Department 423, account 570, snow removal, $87,629, for a total, again, of $90,046.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 11? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Richard Grant. I live at 102 South Washington Street. And my question is, why is the Article 11 I'm reading in our notes seemingly completely unlike what he's reading off as the actual article?
Okay. Somebody want to explain it? Yes, please. Madam Town Council.
Mr. Moderator, Lauren Goldberg, through you. The articles are essentially the ideas of things that might be discussed at the meeting, and the motions are the specific thing that you're voting on. So we're talking about making budget adjustments under this article for this fiscal year, and the particular budget adjustments that are being made are in the motion. And also, sir, I don't know if you're looking at the special town meeting or the annual town meeting, and we're still on the special.
I don't know either.
Okay.
How would I know?
This is the special town meeting we're in right now. Any further discussion on Article 11 of the special town meeting? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 11, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 11 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 12. Article 12. Article 12 fails for lack of a motion. Article 13. Article 13. Article 13 also fails for lack of a motion. Is there any other business to bring before this special town meeting? Seeing none, I now officially close the spring town meeting and reopen the Town of Norton annual town meeting. So please flip to that section of your program. Okay, we are going to take a short recess before we begin the meeting. Please don't go far.
I think he's sitting right there in the dark hat.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry for the delay. Now that the special town meeting has been closed, I would like to officially reopen the annual town meeting, and we will now move to the reading of the warrant. Madam Clerk, was there a return on the warrant?
Mr. Moderator, yes. Norton, Massachusetts. I have served this warrant by posting attested copies at Chartley Post Office, Norton Post Office, Norton Municipal Center, Norton Public Library, and 3 other public places within the limits of said town, 14 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Attest, Michael J. Mayer, Constable, Norton, April 22nd, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now move to the warrant. You may notice we're starting with Article 2. Article 1 was the spring town election that we concluded in March. Article 2.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move to approve Article 2 as printed in the warrant.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on Article 2? Seeing none, we will move to the vote. All in favor of Article 2, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 2 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 3.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman,
I move that the town vote to transfer the amount of $25,000 from free cash for tree services, including but not limited to removal of hazardous trees, stumps, trees, stump removal, and performance of additional preventive and emergency services townwide, including crane rentals and other incidental and related costs.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 3? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 3, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 3 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 4.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman,
I move that the total amount of $4,832,426 be appropriated for the operation of the water enterprise for fiscal year 2022 from water enterprise receipts, including but not limited to user charges, lease revenue, interest, and miscellaneous revenue, in the amount of $4,330,589, and by transferring from retained earnings the amount of $501,837, with $4,299,172 of said sum being appropriated hereunder for direct costs of the enterprise, and $533,254 of said sum to be appropriated in the general fund under Article 6 for indirect costs and allocated to the Water Enterprise Fund for funding as follows. Personnel services, $1,294,143. Other charges and expenditures, $1,308,500. Debt service, $1,696,529. Indirect costs, $533,254, for a total of $4,832,426.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 4? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 4, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 4 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 5.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman,
I move to approve Article 5 as printed in the warrant and recommended by the Finance Committee.
thank you. Any discussion on Article 5? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 5, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 5 passes by majority vote as determined by the moderator. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman,
I move to approve Article 6 as printed in the warrant and recommended by the Finance Committee.
thank you. Any discussion on Article 6? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 6, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 6 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman,
I move that the town vote to transfer the amount of $600,000 from free cash to the Capital Improvements Fund established by the bylaw entitled Capital Improvements Fund, from which appropriations may be made by a two-thirds vote at any town meeting.
thank you. Any discussion on Article 7? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 7, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 7 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 8.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town appropriate the total sum of $2,190,947 for the purchase or lease for periods of time up to or in excess of 3 years with an option to purchase and equip the following new and/or replacement capital items or for capital projects for various town departments and for the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto for the purposes and in the amount set forth in the Finance Committee's recommendations and in the chart entitled Article 8, Proposed FY22 Capital Budget, and to meet said appropriation to transfer the amount of $656,818 from the Capital Improvements Account, $33,000 from the Water Enterprise Retained Earnings, $357,000 from the Sewer Enterprise Retained Earnings, $69,129 from the Ambulance Reserve Fund, by transferring the amount of $350,000 from the Reservoir Streets Fund appropriated under Article 12 of the October 21st, 2019 Annual Town Meeting, and for the item marked borrow, by authorizing the treasurer with the approval of the Select Board to borrow the amount of $725,000 pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, General Law, Chapter 29C, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes, therefore with the understanding that although these will be general obligation bonds of the town, it is anticipated that they will be repaid from the water enterprise in accordance with General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, authorize any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of costs and issuance of such bonds or notes to be applied to the payment of costs approved hereunder, thereby reducing by a like amount the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs for the town items shown to be funded by borrowing as followed. And these are listed in the warrant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 8? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. This vote requires a two-thirds majority for passing. All in favor of Article 8, please signify by raising your hand. Two-thirds, I'm sorry, yes. It says it right there. All those opposed? Article 8 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 9.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to rescind the unissued portions of the $700,000 borrowing authorized under Article 12 of the May 15, 2019 Annual Town Meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 9? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 9, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 9 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 10.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move to approve Article 10 as printed in the warrant and recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 10? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of Article 10, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 10 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 11.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $12 million for the purpose of funding the capital improvements contained in the Energy Management Services Contract under Mass General Law, Chapter 25A, Section 11I, between the town and Train, an energy managed services contractor, for the purpose of improving energy efficiency at town buildings, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is hereby authorized to borrow such amount pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7 or 8, and/or other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes of the town therefore, any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by like amount.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 11? Yes, sir.
Ralph Stefanelli, 12 James Street. The TRAN, does that have anything to do with the upcoming 13th article? Are they married together? Or are they separated? Because I got $500,000 on Article 13, and then I got $12 million on Article 11. Are these articles married in any way, or are they individually standalone articles?
Mr. Town Moderator.
Town manager.
I think what you're talking about, the next article, Article 12, the 517,000, that article won't be moved. That won't be necessary now.
Does Article 11, the one that we are on, allow the school department to earn some money from it? I don't know how to put it into a question because I don't have enough information here. I know what we do at the Housing Authority, but I need more info.
Mr. Moderator, through you, Joe Bida, Superintendent of Schools. To the previous speaker, thank you for the question. The idea behind the procurement process with this program is that the entire town's municipal buildings, including all schools, it's over 30 buildings connected, are reviewed. The town-side buildings are currently going through that process as well for the potential of cost savings within utility charges and upgrades to HVAC air quality systems within buildings. Because the school department has the biggest square footage, if you will, typically in most towns that do this, the schools go first. We see the biggest savings. It is in cost avoidance, state grants for things like the solar, as we spoke privately about, and then the cost savings based on all of that goes into the budget. The process for this would be that the building of the 12 million is bonded, if you will, because we have to borrow it. That's the process. From that, all of those numbers that come in pay the bill. All remaining funds go to the general fund.
I'm pleased to hear that the general fund finally gets its hands on some money. Yay!
Anything I can do for you, Ralph?
Thank you, Mr. Stefanelli. Any further discussion on Article 11? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. This vote requires a 2/3 majority for passage. All in favor of Article 11, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 11 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 12. Article 12. Article 12 fails for lack of a motion. Article 13.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to amend Chapter 133 of Town of Norton's General Code, Stormwater Management, to read as printed under Article 13 of the May 8th, 2021 Annual Town Meeting Warrant with Finance Committee recommendations, with language to be inserted and deleted as set forth in the attachment entitled Article 13, 2021, Proposed Changes to Chapter 133, Stormwater Management Bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 13? Yes, sir.
Kevin Schleicher, 42 West Hodges Street.
I don't know if somebody from Conservation could possibly answer my question. There's just a lot of information in here. How will this affect the general homeowner, and how will it change for the permit process for, say, building a garage or putting on an addition?
I don't see Jennifer. You can just go to the, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. No one will ever notice a difference. Not any homeowner isn't going to notice a difference there.
So there's no extra permit process for, say, like building a perfect?
Nope,
Thank you.
nope, not for that.
Thank you for the question and the information. Any further discussion on Article 13? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of Article 13, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 13 passes unanimously as determined by the moderator. Article 14.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move to approve Article 14 as printed in the warrant and recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have a report from the Planning Board?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Tim Griffin, the chair of the Planning Board, which voted unanimously to recommend this article as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any further discussion on Article 14? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. This zoning bylaw amendment requires a 2/3 majority for passing.
Excuse me, question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Maureen Strozinski, 283 East Main Street. My question is, marijuana cultivators and manufacturers being considered the same thing as commercial marijuana businesses? Because there's a big difference. Marijuana cultivators and manufacturers, known fact that there's significant odor associated with them, and even with remediation efforts in cities like Taunton, have not worked.
For clarification, is your question, are the retail establishments the same as cultivation and manufacturing?
I thought, my understanding was retail was separate from cultivation and manufacturing.
They are.
But as it reads in this article, it says, it lists the cultivator and manufacturer in the same line as the retailers.
Yeah, so what this is, Maureen, is the update to the marijuana establishment definition. That definition covers all establishments under marijuana, including retail establishment, cultivation, manufacturing, delivery, all of those. It just encompasses everything under an establishment, but they are separate.
So there will be a differentiation at some point between manufacturing and commercial and retail?
Yes, there already is.
Okay, because I didn't read it in this article, so it's not clear. So what are we voting on here? Is just the definitions?
So we're voting on 3 different things in this particular article. The first is the definitions. One, that we updated the marijuana establishment definition, and we replaced it with a new one. And the reason for that is because of the changes in regulations. Since we last voted on this in October, we chose to go with the definition from the Cannabis Control Commission that outlines all of the different establishments.
And where will the town provide the differentiation between manufacturing and retail?
It's through the host community agreement as well as the permitting process.
Okay.
That whatever the establishment is has to be spelled out. So what this doesn't change is the limitation to the 2 retail establishments that we have in town.
Okay.
All the changes here are more administrative. There's no material change to the bylaw that we approved in October.
All right, well, thank you. I think you're aware that there's significant concern about allowing manufacturing, especially in residential, nearby residential areas.
Yeah, you mean cultivation because of the odor issues?
Cultivation and manufacture. So they cultivate it and then they manufacture it, which is different than selling it.
Correct.
And the manufacture also causes odors. So I would hope there'd be that differentiation, cultivating, manufacturing, and retail.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion on Article 14? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. This vote requires a 2/3 majority for passage. All in favor of Article 14, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 14 passes by 2/3 majority as determined by the moderator. Article 15.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to approve Article 15 as printed into warrant and recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion on Article 15? Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Yes, could I get a report from the Planning Board, please?
Apologies, sleep at the switch. The planning board did meet and discuss this article and voted to recommend it forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any further discussion on Article 15? This zoning map amendment requires a 2/3 majority for passage. All those in favor of Article 15, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 15 passes by 2/3 majority as determined by the moderator. Article 16.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Chairman.
I move that the town vote to amend the Norton zoning bylaw, Article 3, zoning maps and districts in the town of Norton zoning map adaptable thereunder, which is entitled Zoning Map, Town of Norton, Massachusetts, and dated June 1999, last revised October 17th, 2020, by changing from the residential 80, R80, zoning district to commercial on an area of land along White Street, East Main Street, and Newland Streets, containing the parcels of land as shown on the Town of Norton Assessor's Map as Assessor's Map 5, Parcel 33, and the Assessor's Map, Parcel 33-01.
Thank you. Any discussion on Article 16? Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Again, Tim Griffin, Chair of the Planning Board. The Planning Board met, discussed this article, and voted by a majority vote to recommend it to town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any further discussion on Article 16? Yes, sir.
My name is Oren Siegel. I live at 28 Cotting Road. That's in Red Mill Village. This is a triangle parcel. I'm not sure if you're aware of where it's located. It's at the intersection of Newland Street and 123, right next to Red Mill Village. A triangle parcel is created by a small one-way street. It's called White Street that abuts Red Mill Village and this particular parcel. Right now, Newland Street is considered to be level of service F. This is for traffic. Back in 2018, when they were doing the Leonard Street development, they were required to take traffic analysis of certain intersections. Newland Street was one of them, and they determined that basically they found that there was 96 seconds of a delay during peak hours. Failing grade is 50 seconds. Now with the Blue Star development, the analysis was when that's completed, 2024, that same area will be up to 198 seconds, which is 4 times what is typically a failing level of service, which is 50 seconds. In addition, if you've ever driven down that area, that's basically between 495 going to Target, you'll see a dedicated left-hand lane. There's a dedicated left-hand lane going into Red Mill Village, and just beyond that, there's a major dedicated left-hand lane taking that left-hand turn onto Newland Street. And basically, that whole area of that left-hand lane runs the full area that faces 123 along this parcel. So basically, right now, there's a dedicated left-hand lane fronting that entire parcel. Any kind of development, I would suspect, would have a difficult time as a commercial development getting a curb cut to be able to deal with that particular area, which is now dedicated for a left-hand turn lane. Even if it were allowed, you basically have a problem with restrictions making a left-hand turn lane into that parcel. The area that fronts along Newland Street is a limited size area, and basically because it fronts two different roadways, has a limited access as well, which most practically would limit any kind of commercial development to White Street. White Street is a one-way street, and basically the people living along that area have a difficult time already. They have trucks that take that turn and find themselves trying to make a left-hand turn, which is a very steep turn, and backing up on on White Street. The other issue is basically you have, when you're looking at the area, right now it's residential. At one point, it was residential, changed commercial, then back to residential again. That was turned residential back in 1999. Since that time, nothing's happened on that parcel. However, since that time, at the same period of time, the area that was Red Mill Village, which formerly was a gravel pit, was commercial. Since that time, that has been developed into 152 units of residential property, and the property next to it, which was at 274 East Main Street, has 188 residential units. So basically, the whole area, which on certain maps you'll see as commercial, is now almost completely residential. Across the street from that property, along the strip of 123 that runs from Red Mill Village to basically Birch Street, has a series of residential lots, 30,000 square feet. Now, this parcel has 2 lots. One is 33,000 square feet, and the other was, I think, 2,500 square feet. So basically, if you look at the area, the units all around it, from, again, Red Mill Village all the way up to Birch Street, there's approximately 9 residential units, each of which are 30,000 square feet. So from our perspective, that composes the area that surrounds it. When you look at spot zoning, that's really what it goes to. There's no problem with them trying to approach getting a residential unit on that property. We see no reason to try to convert it to commercial, particularly given the traffic and the circulation issues that would address it. We see no public benefit. There's no pressing need for retail there. Blue Star, when it was developed, has...
Excuse me, Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
If you're going to be continuing, would you please address the moderator?
I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you.
Okay. You lost me now.
I apologize for that. You were talking about Blue Star.
Oh, yeah. If you're talking about a need for the community, for the area, Blue Star has an area designated in its front for retail use. To date, there's been no construction there. To my knowledge, there's been no leasing there. So it's not a matter of there's a need in this community to have retail in this particular area. There are, aside from actual residential uses, our bylaws allow for other types of uses that could go there. educational uses, nursery school uses, farming uses, and basically, and none of the hearings have the applicant said, A, what they plan to do, or B, that they've even tried to make use of that property for any other reason. We just don't see any reason why now, having had that property for over 21 years and seeing that property having now developed next to it for almost exclusively residential, that it should be converted to commercial at this time. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Drain, yes.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Drain of 6 North Washington Street. My parents, John and Lucille, own that parcel of land being requested back to commercial. The area, as mentioned, is a triangular area of land. It's under an acre between the two separate parcels, and it is between 123 Newland and White Street, down the road from Bernie and Phil's and near Red Mill Village, which itself sits on commercially zoned land. We recently discovered that the land purchased back in 1978 as commercial is now listed as residential. All the land around it remains as commercially zoned. And my parents were never notified of any zoning changes in the years since 1978. We actually asked someone to scour town meeting minutes and warrants and could find no deliberate change to the zoning. We presented a series of maps when we presented this to the planning board and the finance and select board meetings, showing how this Scrivener's error most likely occurred. And I'd like to thank the planning board and the finance committees for their support. My mother is simply seeking to get this corrected, which brings us here today to town meeting. I know some of the residents of Red Mill Village have voiced some concerns, which I'd like to speak to a little bit. Regarding any traffic concern, this is a small lot which will only accommodate a small commercial use like a small office building. They have mentioned today that in and around White Street and 123, they see tractor trailer trucks and other traffic and have concerns. But that is all pre-existing traffic around what is a major road in town. This particular land is less than an acre and is not capable of generating incremental traffic concerns of that scale. They've also pointed out that they themselves have a small store and office within their commercially zoned land, and this just proves the point that a small commercial space used for this land is ideal for this area and would complement the area, not be a negative. There was a question of whether this was spot zoning, but this change involves more than one owner's property, and the change actually makes the zoning more consistent with the other land with frontage on White Street and restoring it back to its original zoning. And in any case, zoning articles are forwarded to the Attorney General, and if they believe it is spot zoning, they could reject it. In closing, we ask for your support of this article, first because if not for what it was a zoning map error in the past, we wouldn't even be here today. And second, because it makes more sense for these parcels to be commercially rather than residentially zoned, and it can be an asset to the area. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I thank the Planning Board and the Finance Committees for their support. Please vote to support this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drain. Mr. Stefanelli?
Ralph Stefanelli, 12 James Street. It's a matter of safety. You all have 2 ears on your head. Why did I do that and say that? Because that's the curve where Newland Street goes past all the way up to Leonard Street. It's a very dangerous area. It's a safety issue. Think about that. It's about speed limits of 50, 40 to 50, going around that curve and not having a great sighted area to react to. With the opening of Leonard Street, it's a two-way traffic on a state highway coming from Easton to Leonard and exit 10 to Leonard. Can this article be removed without prejudice so it can be studied from 32,000 feet up and looking at it, how many accidents have taken place within that curved area? So can the article be removed without prejudice for further study? I do not know the answer. I'm asking for that answer.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanelli. Mr. Toole?
Mr. Stefanelli, council advised me that that can be referred back to the planning board for further consideration, but it would not be a removal. It wouldn't be a removal.
Would the applicant reconsider so it's not buried forever, to reconsider it for more study, the same way we treated the stoplights on exit 10? 7 years later, we got them. But it took 7 years, a lot of accidents, and some loss of life at exit 10. It's a very dangerous spot to be driving on, especially with large trucks.
Mrs. Stefanelli, is that a motion or is that just, there is no motion to?
I have no vested interest, so I can't make that motion. It's the applicant. And as an ex-planning board member, I would hope that they would think about it. You don't have long and hard to think about it. It's one of safety, and you could bring it back. Don't kill it forever. Give it a second look. So no, I'm not making that motion. He would have to make it. They would have to make it. Thank you.
Hi, Michael Toole, 104 Newcomb Street. You know, I would encourage the residents to vote against this article for a couple of reasons. It really is an unconforming lot when you see it. It's going to make it viable for a commercial spot. It's going to need a lot of variances, many which would go onto that small white street, and it really is a safety issue. There are 115 residents that have signed a petition and had submitted to the select board. And the residents in that area, it is residential zoning in the majority of that area, except for the special permit at Red Mill Village, which is being used as residential. It really is, this is one of the articles that has a lot of impact on residents, and I would encourage you not to vote for this. And the last but not least, there has been no confirmation of a scrivener's error or of zoning on this property. I would like to make a motion to refer this article back to the planning board. For further study.
So we have a motion on the floor to refer this question back to the planning board for further study. Is there any discussion on that motion? Mr. Stefanelli, do you have a... Second. Yes, we have a second. So, is there any discussion on the motion to move that article back to the planning, to refer that article back to the planning board?
Maureen Straczynski, 283 East Main Street. I would advise not to refer it back. I've seen the planning committee discussions, in relation to any traffic in that area. 283 East Main Street, I've lived there for 25 years. When I moved in, there was a cow pasture across the street. Now there are 188 40B units. And then we have Blue Star. The traffic has increased incrementally over the past few years, and any type of commercial development will impact traffic. Maybe not greatly, but enough to really cause problems. You have to see what's happened since Blue Star came, and now today the town voted to put a road in beside Dunkin' Donuts. That road is being put in so the 33 acres behind Dunkin' Donuts on 495 will be sold by the state, and could be anything from a biotech to other industrial development. They could have chosen to go for commercial zoning for that, and the decision has been in the planning board not to go for commercial, but to go for industrial. So I would urge people to not vote for this to go back to planning, that we vote no today.
Any further discussion on the motion to refer the article to the planning board for further study?
Can I speak a second time with your approval?
The gentleman to your right was there. Would he like to speak first?
I'm sorry. That's okay. You moved off to the side.
That's all right. Jim Riley, 149 West Main Street, and I'm the chair of the Board of Assessors, but I speak on my own behalf. It is my understanding that the Finance Committee has reviewed this and has recommended it. It is my understanding that the Planning Board has already reviewed this and recommended it. This is a 3/4 acre parcel. The article we just moved before this is a 33 acre parcel that we just agreed to, and that also abuts Red Mill Village, and we just agreed that that was fine. So the issue with traffic, I just don't see it with a 3/4 acre parcel. This is a Scrivener error. The owner, Lucille Drain, has done some nice things in the town with the previous couple of parcels down on North Worcester Street that she's cleaned up and renovated. We're just coming back to town meeting to see if we can correct this. This is not a huge traffic situation, so I would not be in favor of moving it back to the planning board. They've already given their opinion on it. If they'd like to weigh in and confirm that might be a good idea. Thank you.
Mr. Stefanelli.
Common sense. How about using some of it? Think about your ear. Think about that curve. Think about a new street near Dunkin' Donuts. Think about Leonard Street, and the front of that could be developed. Think about exit 10. Think about Easton. And think about the fact that Norton, owns that portion of 123. Wow. I don't know what the liability is, but I'd hate like heck to get into an accident on that portion when it can be looked at into the future. Give it some serious thought. It's a safety issue.
I'm sorry, excuse me 1 minute. I apologize for that. Thank you, Mr. Stefanelli. Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to add some additional color from the planning board's existing discussions on this article, if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
So I'll start by saying I thank the Drains for going through the process as they have. I think they've gone about this the right way from the get-go. The property was purchased as commercial in the 70s. At that point, zoning maps the delineations were through colored pencil on paper. The zoning maps have gone through changes over the decades. And as you look at the evolution of the maps over 50 years, at some point it looks like this parcel is actually zoned in two different ways. And then it shifts to residential at some point. Whether there have been other overriding zoning articles which would affect this parcel, such as the zoning map adoption in 1999. We've gone through all that. There's not a whole lot I don't think we could add with a whole lot of further study. Regardless of what goes on this parcel, it's going to be a challenge, whether it's residential, commercial, or otherwise. For anybody who's driven through Route 27 and in Sharon, the lot that's in the middle of that intersection outside Sharon Center, this is essentially a smaller scale version of that parcel. It's surrounded on three sides by different streets, and there's nothing else next to it. Access is going to be a challenge, whether it's residential, commercial, or otherwise. The question is whether town meeting feels that they want to try to bring the zoning back in line with what the Drains thought they had the land in back in the 70s, or whether it's a matter of too little, too late at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Yes, sir.
Tim Farley, 21 Woodward. I've heard that it was an error, and I've heard that it wasn't an error. If it wasn't an error, how did it happen? And if it was an error, you can't not fix the error. You can go back and decide whether it should be residential or commercial, but it should be from the standpoint of when it was originally purchased. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Peg Dooley, 9 West Main Street. We're kind of kicking a dead horse, especially with me up here, because the two gentlemen that just spoke basically have said what I would have said. But also, there's really no reason why access to that lot would ever be on 123. There is plenty of room for 1 or 2 cars to come in and out of all the square footage that's on Newland Street. And the only thing that could ever possibly be put there, it appears to me, would be a dentist, an attorney, such as that, as opposed to some, there certainly isn't going to be a large commercial development, and I actually feel for the Drains who purchased it with the thought in mind that of course it was commercial. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. And it certainly has gone through all these boards, and I have witnessed the Zoom calls and the exchange of information on all 3 of them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Keith Silva, 120 Plain Street. I'd like to move the question.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to move the question. We'll now take a vote on that. If we vote to move the question, we will cut off debate on the amendment and return to the amendment for voting. All those in favor of moving the question, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion to move the amendment passes. We'll now... Okay, so we have moved the vote on the amendment. Now we're going to vote on the amendment to the Article 16. This This amendment will change the text to refer the article to the planning board for further study. All in favor of the amendment to Article 16, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? The amendment fails. We'll now return to discussion on Article 16. Is there any additional discussion on Article 16? Mr. Siegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wish to address two things that just were raised. One was concerned about Scrivener's error and the timing. With all due respect, I think that the Trains purchased this property in 1978. At the time, John Train was a selectman for the town. He purchased the property 37 days after it was approved for as a commercial property. Prior to that, all the plans I've seen going back forever showed it as residential. In 1998, the town underwent, as it's doing now, a master plan. And as a result of that master plan, made certain recommendations. And then in 1999, at the annual meeting, they voted to do away with the entire zoning map and replace it. In their annual report, the planning board stated, at the spring 1999 annual town meeting, the planning board brought before the town a comprehensive revision of the zoning bylaws. All the old zoning districts were eliminated, and 6 new districts were created. New districts closely followed recommended changes proposed in the master deed. Now, at that time, the Trains had purchased the property. He was a former selectman and owned other property in the town. Notice of that kind of a bylaw change does not require specific notice to the tenant, to the owners. It's a town-wide notice. And if they're claiming that they did not get notice and that was a problem, it would be a problem for the entire town because nobody's rezoning would be in effect. In fact, and the other thing that should be brought up, I believe, is following the planning board's closing of the hearing, I believe inquiry was made of town council relative to some issue of spot zoning. And as a result of that, one of the statements, my understanding is, the town council has weighed in and stated there's no Scrivener's error as the owner is claiming a defect in notice, which claim is over 20 years too late. They needed to file it within 90 days after a certain amount of time. Their stated intent would not qualify as public objective, as one of the statements was made by one of the, I think it was the planning director. So just so we put that aside, I think we have to look at this. I mean, whether there was an error before in terms of what the plan looked like, it was clear that the town took a look at the master plan and they looked at it holistically, and they determined that this lot should be appropriate as a residential. One other just a follow-up note, the next year the recreation department listed as one of its objectives is making a playground, looking at making a playground on the White Street parcel. So it's something that the town it was clearly a look at that area, what it needed, where it was going, and they made a decision. And that decision was for it to be residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Town Council.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to affirm the fact that I believe that it's likely that change would not be considered spot zoning. The property abuts or is directly across the street from property zoned as the petitioner would like it to be zoned, and that's not spot zoning. It's spot zoning if it's surrounded on all sides by something else, and then that's changed to be the if it's surrounded by something, and then it's changed to be something besides what it's surrounded by. So, in my opinion, the AG would not consider this spot zoning.
Thank you. Mr. Drain.
I just wanted to make one point. The zoning changes, the widespread zoning changes in 1999, was it? There were no other changes to this area, in terms of the commercial residential split at that time. I mean, this was basically a rounding error on that particular area. It's more likely that the zoning was simply overlooked on this particular piece because of what the planning board chair just spoke about earlier. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Laura Parker, 4 Allen Drive. I move the question.
Don't call it. Don't call it. You'll make a mistake.
I have a motion on the floor to move the question.
I have one
Can you delay your, can you take a vote? Can we take the vote first?
Absolutely. You're the moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanelli. We have a motion on the floor to move the question, Article 16. All those in favor of moving the question, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? The motion to move the question passes.
I'm going to sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanelli. We will now move to the vote on Article 16. All those in favor of Article 16, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Article 16 fails for a lack of 2/3 majority, as determined by the moderator. Article 17. Something else? No. Article 18. There is none. Article 19. Article 19 fails for lack of a motion. Article 20. Article 20. Article 20 fails for lack of a motion. Is there any other business to bring before the spring annual town meeting? Seeing none, I would like to entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we
So
adjourn.
moved. Second. We have a motion to motion and a second to close the meeting. All in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Thank you for coming out, everybody. I declare this meeting closed.